Today on this episode, we have CA Sanjay Khetrapal. So, what's the most rewarding part of being a CA?
It's just a cost that the business has to incur. Taking over roles of CEOs and running a company.
Yeah.
Now it's considered a very integral part of the business.
What do you think is the most important aspect that a leader should keep in mind?
I would say it's honesty, ethics, dependability, reliability. A lot of managers think they are leaders, but they're probably not. You have to be able to build a team, be able to nurture a team. You have to empower your team. You've got to train and guide. I would be a scriptwriter. I can script stories. I love stories. Let's take an example. You want to set up a free zone company and you're in India. You can actually do it over a phone call or a Zoom call. So if you're going to take up a job because it gets you a salary home, you won't go a long way. But make sure that you always are aware of what people above you are doing.
Hello everyone and welcome to Coffee with CA, the global chapter with me, your host Geena Bharwani. Today on this episode, we have CA Sanjay Khetrapal, a seasoned chartered accountant with over 30 years of experience in Dubai. So let's understand how he went from being an auditor in Ernst Young to starting his own CA consulting firm. Let's deep dive into his journey and understand how he did it all. Hello Sanjay and welcome to the show. We're really happy to have you over here.
Thank you, Geena, for having me on the show too.
So first things first, I'm going to take you way back to your journey as when you started as a CA. What got you into it?
Well, actually, this was a decision I made way back. I was 16 years old, and in the 10th grade, I cleared my ICSE.
Okay.
And I had pretty good marks in my science and maths, in fact, over 90. So it was expected that I'll continue in the same line. But I always had this drawing towards the accounting profession.
Correct.
So it's quite an interesting story, actually. So
Definitely, please.
I got admission by default in the 11th grade with the same subjects to continue my journey of education there, but I wasn't interested. So instead of going to college, I actually went around town for 2-3 days, figured out where I wanted to join, got a provisional admission there, and then I went home to tell my folks, because it was mandatory for them, being ever since I was a minor. They had to come to the old school, collect the certificate and go visit the new one. And that has always been my passion, and that I think was a huge life-changing decision which was made.
Okay.
And looking back at it, I think I'm glad, because I found my calling way early in life.
That's nice. So you've always been a numbers guy.
Kind of. I was good at maths, you could say, but then I was always drawn towards the accounting side of it.
Okay, that's nice. So what's the most rewarding part of being a CA?
Well, I think there are many aspects to it, but if you really look at it, the main thing is that once you take any other profession, you know, if you're in the legal profession, you'll end up being kind of a lawyer.
Correct.
Yes, being a chartered accountant means you're going to be in the financial sector, but you have a choice.
Correct.
After you finish your course and you're a qualified CA, you can decide, okay, I want to continue, set up my own firm and be in audit. No, I want to enter the corporate world. I want to go to the financial sector. My interest is the banking sector.
Correct.
So you actually make a decision after you finish that, and that opens a whole wide horizon of career paths that you can choose.
So tell me, what did you do when you graduated as a CA? So immediately, what were your stints like?
So actually, my stint kind of more or less got decided before I qualified.
Okay.
So I had taken my exams and I was waiting for the results to come out.
Yeah.
And I got an opportunity to interview with Ernst Young.
Okay.
At that time, they were called Ernst & Winnie. It's way back.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the interview, they actually told me that if you qualify, you're hired.
Okay.
So it became quite easy for me then, wait for the results. Yes, I qualified.
Correct.
And I was confident I'll qualify because this was my passion. So I always found it easy to pass exams for CAs.
That's the first time I'm hearing someone say like it was easy, it was a cake.
Yeah, I try to understand the subjects rather than trying to memorize and pass the exam.
Okay.
So that was my journey. I qualified. I ended up in Abu Dhabi with E&Y. Post that, obviously, I wanted to kind of go on to the other side of the table.
Yeah.
So I ended up joining Mobile Chemicals.
Okay.
And there was something new because I was there as a senior financial analyst.
Okay.
So that's something you really don't cover during your CA course.
Yeah.
So, my job used to start when accounting would finish.
Correct.
So creating those analyses, doing reports, and at the same time, I was the cost accountant for their manufacturing plant. So that was a whole new learning. Quite happy there, spent a few years, but then I always wanted to be in Dubai.
Oh, okay.
So that was one of the major reasons.
You never wanted to fly back to India?
Kind of, no.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I came out the first time, I thought it was going to be a couple of years and I'll go back. But that never happened because I started liking this place much more.
Okay.
And I just wanted to be in Dubai because I'd visited Dubai a few times, but I hadn't really lived there. So I ended up in Dubai with a oilfield service company called Smith International. And truly, that was my first accounting role. I was an auditor, joined EY, continued being an auditor, ended up being an analyst. And here I was a finance manager. So that was the first time I actually sat down and looked at books and transactions and got involved in the more of the mundane side of the profession.
And not just the scrutiny side,
as
auditors would
because it's easy to check, but it's more difficult to create, I think.
Yeah.
And as I grew with that company, I ended up being a regional controller, which is more like a CFO role.
Okay.
Which gets you, yes, you're overseeing the financial functions, but you're not involved on a day-to-day basis.
Correct.
So you're actually looking at, this legal side, contracts, sitting down with sales, looking at the pricing, making a lot of commercial decisions at that point in time. And 2010, we got acquired by Schlumberger.
Okay.
And I think that was again a big game changer for me because I was with them for 7 years and I was entrusted with the task of setting up a global product sales entity from scratch.
Oh, okay. So that's a huge opportunity.
Yes, all the roles where I had, all the prior experiences of being an analyst and then being a controller and working with sales and operations and contracts, I had to learn newer skills now. I had to learn about global taxation.
Okay.
And I had to learn a lot about the supply chain models.
Okay.
Because I was the final decision maker there.
Okay.
So that really set me up. I think over the years, I'd covered all aspects. So the next natural step, as I would say, was to set up my own consultancy. So it's been 8 years now.
Okay.
And the best thing about being a consultant after having such a diverse career path is I'm actually using all the skills that I had gathered. So I do outsource bookkeeping, which is like my finance manager role in the early days. I do CFO services, that's my regional controller role.
Correct.
I do a lot of corporate tax advisories and VAT advisories, so I'm involved into tax. And that's again stuff which I learned, as a controller and then as running that global sales entity.
Yeah.
And recently we've got into mergers and acquisitions.
Okay. So it feels like a full circle right now with your consulting.
Yes, and I think I'm able to use all the skills I've learned, and I think I'm quite blessed to have had such diverse experiences. So now we have I work with tied up with a US multinational who's into this business of mergers and acquisitions.
Okay.
They help people sell businesses and help people buy businesses.
All right.
So we've already got quite a substantial inventory in the UAE with us, and that's exclusively with us.
Since you spoke about mergers and acquisitions, here's something which I want to pick your brains on. When someone's like looking to merge with a different company or acquire a different company, what are the basic 2-3 points which someone has to keep in mind? Or like the company has to keep in mind, if you could just...
So, before you actually go into helping someone acquire a company, I think as a professional, now I'm not going into their business side or their vision, but as a professional, I think it's important for us to really understand first, what is the vision and the need that the business owner has, which is making him consider this decision.
Okay.
That right, we want to acquire X company, or we want to, maybe do some corporate restructuring or whatever they might want to do.
Correct, yeah.
So first thing is to understand their need, their vision, work out a proper roadmap with them as to how things would be.
Yeah.
And again, as a professional, I think you just can't listen to one side and go along with what they want because you're the professional.
Yeah.
So it's way up early that you need to put in your thoughts, your recommendations. And then once you've kind of more or less agreed on the plan and the strategy, I think that's when you take a deep dive.
Okay.
And you go in and you say, let's look at all the implications here. What are the legal implications of this? What are the tax implications of this? What would it mean to a company in terms of agility, scalability in the long term?
Yeah.
So there are various aspects that you look at. And at the same time, don't forget government approvals.
Yeah.
In many places, you need government approvals before you actually are able to finish a merger or an acquisition.
Correct.
And then make a proper roadmap, make a proper timeline, and just work towards it.
That's nice. That's nice. So, in terms of being in UAE, you've been in Dubai for almost most of your life, or in the Gulf area at least.
Yes.
For most of your life.
All my career.
Your whole career. So that's
Professional
around 30 plus years,
Yes,
if I'm not
it is,
mistaken.
yes.
How different is the tax structure over here when compared to another country?
Actually, it's quite similar.
Okay.
I mean, it is at par with all other international tax structures which you would see globally.
Okay.
I think there's only one little unique aspect here, which does make it a bit challenging initially for people, is that there is no personal income tax in the country.
Okay.
And there is corporate income tax.
Okay.
So if you have personal income tax and corporate income tax, it makes it much easier, for the whole tax structure to start functioning.
Correct.
So at this point in time, since there is no personal income tax, it's a real challenge, and we have to work on certain benchmarking aspects also if the business owner is involved in the business and they're drawing a salary.
Yeah.
Because from the government authority, the tax authorities here, you can't just withdraw everything as salary and not pay any taxes.
Yeah.
So there are certain aspects we have to consider in terms of how much is the involvement of the owner in the business, what are their skill sets, what is truly their job description or their role in the company, what would be the benchmarking if you look at similar job profiles across the country for similar sized companies. Because the end goal is you can't say that, hey, I was making $1 million dirhams and now I've withdrawn 900,000 as my salary and I have no tax to pay. So that's a bit of a challenge here, and getting people to understand that is also a bit of a challenge because this is something new.
Yeah.
And it's still evolving in this part of the world.
Correct. So you were there at the time also. I think that's the time when you started your consulting called ACCVAT.
Yes.
Right? When VAT just came in.
Yes.
And that's why I think the name comes from there.
Yes, it was just to catch the attention of people. So we kind of call it ACCVAT. So ACC is short for accounting, and VAT is short for VAT. So it kind of stares in your face that this is what the company does.
Correct, yeah. So what were your thoughts in terms of how do people adjust to VAT at that point of time, because you were at the forefront of running a business at that, your consulting company at that time, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
People didn't understand, to be honest, the first time. Because they considered it a cost.
Okay.
Also, if you really look back, there was no legal requirement in this country ever to keep a set of books.
Correct.
To kind of keep your business expenses separate, keep your personal expenses separate.
Yeah.
And people just kind of knew that I'm making X amount, I can spend Y. And I'll still have, Z in the bank. So to get them to kind of say that there is a certain amount of VAT which will have to be added onto the transaction, you need to keep a set of books. There is a government body or a tax authority to which you have to submit the details.
Yeah.
And you have to keep a track of all the costs. And then again, as in any tax legislation, there are many, many different articles, clauses, requirements.
Yeah.
So you can't recover VAT on every transaction. And that's what people couldn't understand. Hey, I'll buy this in my company's name, or I'll do that. So when we started off, first we had to educate them to say, hey, you need a set of books now.
Correct.
B, you need to be very sure that you get the right documentation. Otherwise, whatever VAT you're paying, you might not be able to recover.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's not a cost. You are collecting the VAT and you're paying it and you're giving VAT to your vendors and you're kind of netting it off.
Correct.
But yes, that's where I think was a great timing for our company, because that's when the concept of accounting came in. VAT came in, and as all laws are, they were initially a bit grey, more clarifications came out. But here I would say we got a head start.
Yeah.
Because with all the roles I had played and the exposure to global tax, because I was even managing a company we had set up in Netherlands.
Okay.
So I had a bit of an idea about European VAT.
Okay. So that helped you over here.
Yes, because again, most of the laws are similar.
Yeah.
They do have the local biases and stuff. Like for UAE, real estate is important. So there's certain rules which could be different for real estate versus, the other businesses. But otherwise, yes, it was a bit of a challenge. But at the same time, I think it was really rewarding.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. So your global perspective on taxation actually came into use at that point of time, is what I understand from your conversation.
I think I would say that.
So Sanjay, tell me about how important is it for a company to have a compliance framework in place?
I think the importance of a strong compliance framework cannot be undermined because it's really critical.
Correct.
And businesses are now beginning to understand that idea is sinking into them that we need to do things differently.
Yeah.
Because if you really look back, previously there was no requirement to have a set of books, and nobody really cared. And at this point, I think when the legislation started coming, they've kind of had it, VAT coming in 18 and corporate tax coming in 24. So the UAE government has been pretty good at this. So they first brought in the VAT legislation, where businesses started realizing that now we have to focus on all VAT-related transactions.
Correct.
So they built up sufficient compliance to cater to that. And hey, let's make sure our invoices are compliant. Let's make sure that we're following the rules of VAT.
Yeah.
Let's not make any mistakes. And they just put in a little bit as was required at that stage.
Yeah.
But I think the corporate tax is a real game changer.
Okay.
Now, starting 24, what corporate tax now tells the businesses is that you have to pay tax on the profit or the income that you earn.
Correct.
And book profit is necessarily not the same as taxable income.
Yeah.
And now there is a government authority, the tax authority has a right to come in and audit your entire books. So they have to make sure that all the business transactions are recorded, all the personal transactions are not recorded in the books, and everything has to be adequately supported and properly recorded adhering to IFRS standards and the other requirements. Because you have to have a clean set of books now.
Yeah.
Your profit and loss should be correct and accurate. Your balance sheet should be correct. So there is the requirement of now a proper compliance framework required here, a strong one. Because at the end of the day, it's a bottoms approach.
Yeah.
So if the first transaction being recorded at the most starting point in your books is not correct, then eventually your income statements are not going to be correct.
Yeah.
And your profit is not going to be correct. So, and you have to put in a lot of processes and controls in place. I mean, we can talk about them more in detail if you want. But in general, it affects every department. It's not only accounting or finance.
Yeah.
Corporate tax makes the sales team realize that, we need to look at our margins more closely, but a piece of that would probably go out in cash as corporate tax.
Correct, yeah.
Or the contracts team have to worry about tax clauses.
Yeah.
Because especially for cross-border and international transactions, you could end up paying tax in another legislation. There they could tax you. It's called withholding tax.
Yeah.
And you might end up paying tax twice if you don't really understand the implications. So compliance in every level, in every department is really critical now for businesses to stay profitable and not end up paying penalties here in the future.
Exactly. So my next question would be, how do you manage cross-border transactions?
Well, first of all, yes, I do have a working knowledge, luckily, of various countries' tax regimes. However, normally when you're involved in cross-border transactions, I would say there are two kinds. One involves the company's offices in other countries where they actually have a business presence. Now, at that point in time, if there are certain business structurings and transactions that we are doing, which involves the UAE,
correct,
then at the same time, I think every big company has enough local talent in terms of this, their finance professionals or tax professionals in that country. So we work as a team together. Because you're not an expert on every aspect. So we work as a team and we work out the best strategy, keeping in mind I'm trying to protect the UAE perspective.
Yeah.
And they're looking at their perspective. So at the end, we come up with a plan which works for everybody. Now, there could be cross-border transactions where it's just a company which is based here.
Correct, yeah.
And they're carrying on business in another country. So then, yes, having the concept of PE, place of effective management,
correct,
POEM, PE, and all those aspects have to be considered locally before you can actually go around saying that, okay, let's just go ahead and do business in another country. Because there are local regulations, there are UAE tax regulations. And as I said, the UAE tax is very similar to world over. So once you understand the UAE aspect, and for a company which is based in the UAE and doing business outside, you kind of know what is the right way to do that. So it works.
So talking about businesses that are based out of UAE. Now say someone is they're running an international business. They want to set up over here in UAE. What are the 3 things that they have to keep in mind?
So when setting up a business in the UAE, first is you've got to figure out what kind of business vehicle do you need here?
Okay.
That will...
Can you emphasize on that, please?
What is the nature of your company? Should you open a branch?
Okay.
Should you have a 100% subsidiary?
Okay.
Should you set up a standalone entity? You need to take a call based on the nature of the business that you're doing.
Okay.
Now, for most international companies, they do kind of set up a 100% subsidiary or a branch, depending on the nature of the business.
All right.
And then comes, where exactly do you want your legal entity to be set up? Do you want it on UAE mainland because it'll have different tax regulations? Do you want it in the UAE Free Zone? Would that be beneficial for you? Would you be able to benefit from the 0% tax regime that exists for free zones? Again, then the second would be your target market.
Okay.
Because sitting in the free zone and then saying I'm selling into UAE mainland commercially is A, not correct, B, you don't get any tax benefit. So those are the few things. First, they have to figure out what to do and how to set up their structure.
Correct.
And that would differ from company to company, the nature of business, the target market, and exactly what kind of business they're in.
Yeah. So what are the perks of a business if they set up in UAE?
It's the ease of doing business. I mean, I've been here many years.
Yeah.
And let's take an example. You want to set up a free zone company and you're in India.
Correct, yeah.
You can actually do it over a phone call or a Zoom call. You don't have to travel to the country.
Okay.
You'll get your license within a week's time. So, I mean, you don't find that ease anywhere else.
Yeah.
Is it fast? Yes. Is it economical? I would say probably yes, it falls within the mid-tier. It's not over the top. Do you have a lot of initial requirements to set things up? Like any other country? Yes. They have to make sure that your paperwork's correct, you're bona fide, and you're the same person who you state you are.
That's just the usual background check.
So even when they do it on the Zoom call, you actually hold your passport up and you show things, and the camera has to be panned in where you're actually signing off. So as if they're using technology.
Correct.
I mean, as if you're there in person.
Yeah. So since you mentioned technology, here's my next question. How do you see a chartered accountant's journey being evolved over the years with technology coming at the forefront?
I mean, technology in the future or technology as it exists today compared to the past?
As it exists today when compared to the past.
For a chartered accountant, prior to technology, I would say, and for any other
profession,
there were a lot of things which were done manually.
Yeah.
And so you had to have a lot of controls, what we call internal controls, to make sure in the financial world that everything's correct, whether it's accounting or tax or whatever it might be, were manual. Now with technology, a lot of these things are handled by softwares.
Yeah.
Now take Zoho is a good example.
Correct.
It does a lot of things automatically, and Zoho books, they have a lot of inbuilt controls.
Yeah.
And they have different versions, so the UAE version caters to the UAE control. So software, it does play a major role in making life much easier for us accountants.
Yeah. So e-invoicing is coming up.
Yes, it is.
So what do you think, how the landscape is going to change then with e-invoicing? Give me your thoughts on it.
So I mean, e-invoicing has existed for a number of years in other jurisdictions.
Yeah, I think KSA being one
It's been in the neighborhood, it's come in Saudi now.
Yeah.
But they have a very good approach. Yes, the law has already been released in the UAE, and it's going to start getting effective in 25, getting implemented. So it's always first they cater to the businesses which are big, because they have the resources to invest in technology.
Yeah.
And that's going to be very big for the software companies. It's going to be huge. There are a few big players, but now we see a lot of smaller players entering the same arena now. Because every invoice that you now create and give is actually also logged into the tax system.
Yeah.
And they also will be able to match it if you're creating an invoice and somebody else is not putting the same invoice in from their end to match things off to zero.
Correct.
So I think it'll go a long way in bringing more transparency, and it will give kind of lift UAE stature also at the same time. So saying that yes, everything is very clean, clear, and we can actually depend upon the financial results of a company.
Yeah. So it's not like everything's going to be either black or white. There's no gray area.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Sanjay, we spoke about VAT, we spoke about corporate tax, then we spoke about the upcoming e-invoicing as well. The tax structure is going on changing every now and then. How do you keep yourself updated and bring the best services to your clients?
I mean, I think this is like a no-brainer. We have to read, make sure we're up to date, adapt, and communicate.
Correct.
So read it, understand it, adapt, and bring the new changes, which at every level, and then communicate not only to your clients but internally. Because as a service provider, our teams have to be updated.
Correct.
So as professionals and as a service provider now, doing my own stuff, we just have to keep some time aside to stay up to date.
That's nice. So talking about service provider, you being a service provider, you also provide CFO services. So how important is it for you to validate and verify that the accuracy is important and efficiency is important, being covered for companies that you are providing these services to?
Yes, I mean, I do have this service, and as a CFO, I think it, at least here in this part of the world, because a virtual CFO is still a very evolving scenario here.
Yeah.
It did not exist previously.
Yeah.
So one is, of course, from the business owner's perspective, what is their goal? Is like, they make sure that because they've got you as a virtual CFO, that at least the numbers are going to be right.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you are their sounding board before they make any business decisions.
Correct.
And you are with them in all, whenever they're planning for strategy and things like that.
Yeah.
So apart from that, to make sure that you are able to deliver as a CFO, we have to go back to the basics.
Okay.
We really have to go back and see whether the accounting transactions have sufficient internal controls there.
Yeah.
Because it all goes bottoms up to the top. So the first transaction has to have the right control in there. So internal controls, I mean, it's easy to say, it's a buzzword, you keep hearing people talk about it. But truly, it's the whole element of a business transaction. Any business transaction could be either a payment or a recording of any transaction, if you want to go down to the real data entry basics here.
Correct.
It's a process. You need to have a process which should be mapped out. You need to have controls in place which should be clearly defined.
Yeah.
And then you should have segregation of duties.
Okay.
If all three are in place, now I don't say that a small company can have all three ideally compared to how a big company would have.
Correct.
But the element of having a process and having a control and segregation should exist, and actually does exist if you really think about it. And controls, I think if a business is putting in controls, and that's where we come in as chartered accountants, is to help them identify and differentiate that there are preventive controls and there are detective controls.
Yeah.
Now, preventive controls really talk about a certain process in place and a control in place which prevents an error from occurring. While detective control means that if that has failed and an error has occurred, you are able to catch it and fix it. And that's normally by the end of the month because all books need to be closed monthly.
Correct. Because of VAT returns.
Correct. And so a lot of times I've noticed business owners understand their business.
Yeah.
They say, right, we've got to buy something, we'll get quotations, we'll issue the purchase order, we'll get the stuff in, we'll pay the supplier. And that's what they need to do as businesses.
Correct.
But as a CFO, I have to go back and say, great, where are the controls in this whole process that you just said? So, do you have approved vendors? Do we have a system to set that up? Do we have someone making sure that the PO is in line with the quotation? Where's the control here?
Correct.
When the goods are received, where are they received? In the warehouse, for example. So there's a storekeeper who is going to be making sure these are the goods received and make up what we call a goods received note.
Correct, yeah.
Right? Now we've got someone getting the quotes, we've got, say, maybe if not a purchase department, an admin in a smaller company making the PO.
Yeah.
Now we've got a storekeeper receiving the goods. Now these are three different segregations we've got in place. So then when it comes to accounting, where the real control sits is that they do a three-way match.
Yeah.
Is that the purchase order, the goods received, and the supplier bill are matched.
Correct, yeah.
And that's where the control is. And then even up to the payment stage, you can have more controls. Somebody should be checking all the invoices they are paying. Doing a bank reconciliation at the end.
Yeah.
So that reconciliation helps. And softwares make it much easier.
Yeah.
Now, because everybody has access to the same database.
Correct.
But what makes it easy for segregation without having to worry is you have restricted access for different users.
Correct, yeah.
So at the end, the three-way match is normally done by softwares now automatically. So they are helping with the control process.
So they would prompt you as and when.
If things don't match.
Exactly.
So once we've got the basic stuff in place, and as you've seen, it's not very difficult, it's easy. So as a CFO, while I'm advising on the other aspects of the business, it's very important that I help build a strong team of accountants who know the processes. They should be documented. Controls are more or less, to a major extent, software controls now, but there are a lot of manual controls here. And at the end of the day, all the detective controls are functioning. So we should be able to track all of that evidence. And I'll digress a bit, I'll give you a real life example here.
Please, go ahead.
Way back in 2002, after the Enron issue happened in the US, there was the Sarbanes-Oxley Act that came out. I'm not too sure if many young professionals know about it.
I think everyone who is at least learned about accounting will know about the Sarbanes-Oxley Act.
So basically it's more for US public listed companies.
Yeah, correct.
Where it is important or was necessary for the auditors not to just sign off a regular audit report, but also to say that they had audited the processes, the controls, they had seen evidence of the control actually happening, and identify any gaps. So for a public listed company, this could impact the share price.
Definitely.
So we went to the same audit because I was working for an American company. And we were running a hub in Dubai. So it was not just one legal entity of Dubai. We had the regional entities all being managed out of here. And during this audit of theirs for our region, where I was responsible as a manager and CFO, the report was nil. They had no gaps.
That's nice.
I feel good about it.
It's good when there are no gaps involved in any of these processes, because once the processes are set, automatically everything will flow into place. Then you don't need to be worried, is my invoice right, and is this payment coming on time, and all of it, because your process.
But they have to function. People put in a lot of documentation, people put in a lot of policies and processes. But I think as a CFO, we have to make sure that they are functioning. And there is evidence that they're functioning.
Definitely. That's nice. So we are on to our next question. So Sanjay, you've held a leadership role in multiple positions over your past career span. So what do you think is the most important aspect that a leader should keep in mind?
I think first and foremost, I would say it's honesty, ethics, dependability, reliability. And I think that's what more or less many books also tell you. But at the same time, that's what your clients expect from you.
Correct.
But to take this a step further, I would say to be an effective leader, yes, those are the basic traits that we spoke about. But you really have to be able to nurture a team. You have to be able to build a team.
Correct.
You have to empower your team. You've got to train and guide. So a leader is not, a lot of managers think they are leaders, but they're probably not. So a leader pulls a team together, trains them, nurtures them, empowers them, lets them make their own decisions. Because at the end, you have to trust your team. You will see that, once you actually empower your team, they understand the vision of the company. They care more about the reputation of the company, and they won't let you down.
Yeah.
So a leader should always be there to support their team, to support the people around. And it's not I would say, not just restricted to the work environment. Because there, yes, you can guide, train, make sure you thank everybody after a job well done. A lot of leaders forget to thank their team because they wouldn't have been able to do it without them.
Correct.
But then there are certain personal aspects which we as humans all have. And we have to understand that. Things can go wrong in someone's life. There could be certain happy milestones. There could be sad moments. You've got to be there as a support all the time. Good occasions, happy occasions have to be shared together.
Empathetic.
We have to meet outside the office, have a lot of more team building activity, have a lot of more get-togethers, celebrate birthdays.
Yeah.
So it all becomes one big family. So that's where I think the real leadership quality lies.
Correct. So talking about, since you mentioned ethics, and has there ever been a time where you had to make a tough decision because of the ethics that you follow?
Yes, quite a few times it happens.
Yeah.
Now, since I was working always with larger groups and organizations, so I think internally there was never really a conflict. Because we have a certain code of conduct and certain ethics and all the policies in place, and we were following them. But you do come across things. So I do remember during my corporate career, I was approached a couple of times by vendors who were ready to give us X amount of money if you look the other way for something. So for me, it was quite simple. There was a certain great internal environment that we are involved in. Sorry, out you go and make sure the company is blacklisted.
Correct.
And even today as a consultant, you do sometimes see certain scenarios where it could be maybe due to sanctions across the world. Sometimes you have to give up lucrative contracts. I mean, it can be hard letting a lot of revenue and flow disappear, but you've got to do it. And I think the basic stuff which I follow is that if you're not comfortable working with somebody, it doesn't matter how lucrative it is. You stick to your standards and decline the work.
Correct.
And it gives you not only makes you feel good at work, but it also, I think, gives you a lot of inner peace when you sleep. And as you go along following this, it's not hard anymore. These are not tough decisions. They become a way of life.
So it's as simple as signing a paper, but with the mindset that you are intentional about it.
Correct.
Yeah, that's nice. So I'm going to wrap it up with the last couple of questions, which is, you've been a senior chartered accountant, because I keep mentioning it over and over again, because you have 30 plus years of experience, so that's no joke. So you've seen the profession evolve. Tell me your thoughts on that, and also how do you see it in like 5 to 10 years down the line too?
Okay. So, I mean, and I'm going to come up with what I have seen and experienced.
Definitely.
So in the past, if we go back, the finance department or function was kind of viewed as a standalone, after the fact, more or less bean counter. You do the counting after we've done the business.
Correct.
And it's just a cost that the business has to incur. That's how they were always viewed historically. But in the last, I would say, couple of decades, and especially in the last 10, 12 decades with the world changing so fast, we've seen that now it's considered a very integral part of the business. And to show that, we have seen CFOs taking over roles of CEOs and running a company.
Yeah.
So it's no more segregated. Now, one good example would be Indra Nooyi. She was the CFO in Pepsi, became the CEO, and I think 12 years, or was it in somewhere around that, maybe 12 years, she actually doubled the revenue of Pepsi.
Correct, yeah.
So now we're all an integral part. It's really changed.
Yeah. And my last...
Yeah, sorry, you wanted to know about the future also.
Yeah.
So going to the future, I think there's going to be a lot of change. In fact, it's already happening. We can see that due to technology, there are many rapid changes which are coming into our profession.
Yeah.
There are automation, there are bots. So as AI develops, then it has the more practical applications developed for it.
Correct.
We'll see a lot of mundane, traditional accounting tasks slowly disappear because they really won't be required. We already can see it happening, and we can already see in which direction it will go. So over a period of time, I think for the finance people, they will also have to reinvent themselves and gather more skills which are more relevant to the current times. But having said that, we've seen that in all, whether it was the Industrial Revolution, when the IT world started, as old jobs disappear, as old functions go, there are new things which evolve. And some will be there in the future which we can't even think about today.
Correct.
So we are going to be relevant, but in a different way.
That's nice. So as someone who is entering the profession as of date, like, a new person looking to become a financial consultant or maybe a virtual CFO, what is your advice for them?
You have to have passion. So if you're going to take up a job because it gets you a salary home, you won't go a long way. You have to have the passion. And you have to always evolve your knowledge and your skill sets. And what I followed when I was young, because don't forget, I took my job up at EY when I was only 22 and a half.
Yeah.
So it's been a long journey.
Correct.
So the key is, yes, you've got to have the passion. You have to do and do it well, whatever your current responsibilities are.
Correct.
And that's what I advise every young CA coming out. But make sure that you always are aware of what people above you are doing. So you have to make sure that you understand and you not only deliver what you're supposed to do, but at the same time you're gathering skill sets for the future. Correct. So the more you learn beyond your job, the more it will help you. And eventually people do recognize that you yourself become a better professional. And it's a journey which will always be on the way up.
That's nice. It was lovely talking to you and picking your brains on so many different things, Sanjay. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you for having me.
We are on to our very next fun segment, which is called Beyond the Balance Sheet.
Okay.
I'm going to be using my phone over here for this, so pardon me for that. If you could go back in time and give your younger CA an advice, just one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would work much earlier in my career to start on my own journey. I wouldn't have waited so long.
That's nice. So, if you weren't a chartered accountant, what career would you have pursued?
I would be a scriptwriter.
Oh,
I can script stories. I love stories.
That's nice. So, if you had to explain the UAE taxation to a 5-year-old, how would you do it?
Take money, give money, net it, and pay to the tax authority. It's as easy as that.
That's nice. So my last question would be, since you said you're a script writer, so talking about movie scripts, what's one financial fraud film that you really liked?
Well, there have been quite a few, but I think in current times it's The Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay.
That's more relevant to today.
Yeah, that's a favorite, I think, of everyone.
But if you think every time there's been a scandal, there's a movie.
Exactly.
We had on Enron, we had on Lemon, so Ponzi scheme was way back. So
correct. All right. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for this conversation. We had a lovely time chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and it's been wonderful being here. Thanks for having me on the show. And thank you.
Thank you.